I want to do a couple examples of using quadratic formula where you would come up with complex zeros. And complex zeros simply mean we're going to come up with zeros that have an imaginary component to them, meaning we would have been taking the square root of a negative number. So let's start with this. X squared plus 6x plus 45 equals 0. So as always, we have to start by saying, well, a is the coefficient on x squared, b is the coefficient on x, c is the y-intercept, and we're going to use our quadratic formula. Remember, it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So again, we're just going to put these values in place in our formula. So I'm going to have negative b. Well, b was 6. I always think about this like opposite of b. So we're going to have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times a, which was 1, times c, which was 45. Okay. All over 2 times a. Okay, let's make a pass through where we kind of simplify this a little bit. I'm going to have negative 6 out front. Negative 6 times negative 6 squared, is 36. Minus. Now 4 times 1 times 45, that is 180. All over, and of course 2 times 1 is 2. Okay. Well, if you type that in, that 36 minus 180, you find out that is negative 144. Now, you may have learned earlier that if you get a negative number under that square root, what that means, just from a graphical standpoint, think about a graph, it means your parabola, your x squared plus 6x plus 45, is something like this. It's never going to touch the axis. There are no zeros. There's no, what we say, real zeros, because they're not going to actually hit the line. But now that we've expanded into the imaginary system, we can say, well, I know the square root of 144 is 12. So the square root of negative 144 would be 12i. So we'd say negative 6 plus and minus 12i over 2. Now, you got to remember, if you're going to simplify, you have to simplify everything. Everything is divisible by 2. I could divide the negative 6 by 2 and the 12 by 2, and I could say my answers then are negative 3 plus or minus 6i. And though that is your final solution. Okay? Let's do one more example. X squared plus 12x plus 85. So again, you think about that coefficient there. So A is going to be 1, B is going to be 12, C is going to be 85. This is always the order as long as your parabola is written in standard form, meaning starting with x squared, the next term has just an x, and the next term is the y-intercept. It has no x. So let's substitute here. We've got the opposite of B, plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay. So 12 squared is 144. 4 times 1 times 85 is 340. I'd have to type that in. All over 2. Well, 144 minus 340 is negative 196. Square root of negative 196. Well, square root of positive 196 is 14. So this will be 14i. Once again, everything is divisible by 2. So I could reduce this to negative 6 plus or minus 7